openings are not just empty areas in Revit. They're actually entities created in Revit which can do everything from creating wall penetrations to openings in floors. In this example, we'll create an opening for a future staircase that we'll be placing in our structure. So first we need to actually find the spot inside of our building where that future staircase is going to be at. In this case, I know that it's going to be around column grid B here, so we'll go ahead and start to zoom in here where column grid B is located at. And I know that it's also fairly close to column grid number 2 here as well. So we'll zoom in, and I know that it's going to be right in this area because it's right to the right of where number 2 is located at. So we're going to be placing an opening object inside of this space. So to begin with placing the opening itself, we'll need to come up here to where it has structure, then move over to the right-hand side, and we're going to look for our openings. And this particular one is called a shaft opening, and it's good for such things as staircases as well as places where you might place elevators at. So we'll go ahead and select on shaft. Next, we'll want to start to draw this in. Now I happen to know that this happens to start off about 1 foot off of where this beam is placed at. So in order to be able to do this, we'll start off by using the line work tool, but we're going to set an offset value to this line work tool. So when we start to draw, it's going to actually place this first line 1 foot away from where we're drawing the line at. So we'll select offset 1 foot, pick the beginning spot for where this line should be, and then move straight down. If for some reason the line is on the other side, it shouldn't be for you, but if it is, you can always hit the space bar to flip it to the appropriate side. So just make sure that it's on the right-hand side here and then come straight down. And this sort of pink-purple line here is offset about 1 foot from where we're currently drawing at. Now come back down here to the intersection of these 2 grid lines and then just click once. Now keep that 1 foot offset, move directly over to your right. Now I know that we're going to need to make some sort of adjustment to this a little bit later on, but we're just going to move over in this direction. Let's just do it down to this grid line right here where we have this grid line intersection at. Next, we're going to move straight on up where we have this intersection here and click again. Now the offset that I want to do for this next one's going to be a little bit bigger. I don't need to have the staircase fill up the entire bay. So in order to be able to handle that, I'd like to have this gap be about 2 feet 8 inches. So the offset here is going to be 2 feet 8. And then move straight over again. And then I'm just going to click on the end point of this line. And then hit escape a couple of times to get out of that command. Now it does need to be one continuous line as we go around. So in order to be able to do this, you can just click on the line, select on the little circular shape there, and drag it down to the endpoint, and then click out in space. Now this is going to be sort of the basis of our opening from here on out. And I do know that our opening is going to be a little bit smaller than this. So what's going to happen is that this line ultimately is going to move over in this direction. But for right now, we're just going to click on the big green check mark. And what this has done up to this point is it actually has created our opening object. And if we take a look at this in a 3D view, then maybe spin this around a little bit so we can start to see through our floor here. We can then zoom in and we can see a couple different openings in our floors. In fact, if we move around just right, we can eventually highlight it and we can see a box there. And that's actually our opening object. Now, the opening has its own set of properties associated with it. Right now, it's told to be -1 feet below the level it's associated with, in this case, the first floor. Well, I don't really want to have a hole in my first floor, so I'm going to change this base offset to be 0 feet 0 inches, or just 0. And I'm going to click here where it has the number 20. Next, it has an unconnected height of 20 feet, which means this height of it's going to go up 20 feet into the air. It's not really what I want to have done, so what I'd like to do is I'd like it to come up basically up to our roof level. So in order to be able to do that, we're going to change the top constraint where it says unconnected right here, and we're going to bring this up to level 10, which is our roof. Now it's already started to make one of the first changes, which is right here with 1-first floor. And when we moved our cursor over here to the right-hand side, you'll see it automatically starts that penetration on up through all the other floors. So now if we end up clicking off into space somewhere and then just zoom out, we can now see that floor opening getting carried up through each and every one of our floor plates going on up in our structure. The next thing we would need to do is we would actually need to come back in here and then start to clean up some of these holes. If we look at this in a 3D view now, in fact, we're technically in a 3D view now, but if we just sort of zoom around here and start to dive in there, we can see that currently we have some structural members that are kind of in our way. Since the structural members are already up on each and every floor, it means that this next move that we're going to do, we would actually have to copy up to each and every floor or make this modification on each and every floor. But I'll show you this just on the second floor, and then we'll know that we would need to do this for all the rest of our floors as well. So we're going to come into our second floor, and then we're going to need to make a modification here. So we're going to be framing around this opening. In fact, we actually need to make this opening the appropriate size for what we need. So to do this, we're going to select on our first structural member over here, which is this W21 by 57. And then I'm going to copy this over. So select on that, come up here to copy, and you can either have it check in multiple or not. In this case, it doesn't matter. Move over here and just pick a base point for where we're going to copy this from. Next, we're going to move over 1 foot 10 inches. And you'll see that it tries to default snap to just 2 feet or 1 foot 6. But as soon as you have that temporary dimension in place, you can type in 1 foot 10 inches. And it'll automatically make a copy of that beam over 1 foot 10 inches. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to make another copy, and I'm going to copy this one right here, and I'm going to copy it over 8 feet 4 inches to the left. So go ahead and select on it, copy command, 8 feet 4 inches. And we can just type it in as soon as you see that temporary dimension down there. The temporary dimension in this case says 5 foot, but we'll change that to be 8 foot 4 inches. Now we want to clean this particular beam up. And the best way to do that will be to just select on it, click on the little circular shape here, pull it down, do the same thing here, except pull it up. And we might need to adjust it just a little bit if you didn't get the exact location right, and just get it so it's going to be touching each of these different beams that are currently going across. And then finally, we need to clean this one up right here. Now, if you have the little push pin that shows up here, you can just click on the little push pin, click on the little circle, and then just pull it back. Now, the reason why that push pin showed up when we first selected on this is because this was created with a beam system, and this beam was locked to the beam system. So by clicking off the push pin, it means we can modify the beam system a little bit so that that beam is in the right location. Now, the final thing that we're going to need to do is start to make a modification to our opening. And to do that, you select on the opening, click on Edit Sketch, come here to that colored line again, and we're just going to use the Move command because I already know that this is the right distance away. Pick right here in the center of this beam on the right-hand side, and then move it over so that we're going to be now clicking on the center of this beam right here. So it's still the same distance away here as it was over here. And we can click on the big green check mark now that our opening has been resized. Now here on the second floor, we now have the proper structure in place, as well as an opening here in the floors. So it's now framed around and it's going to be structurally sound. So in conclusion, shaft openings are objects that can be moved around, and they'll create penetrations in each floor plate of each floor that they happen to extend through. Just remember that if you're going through this process, though, you're still going to have to make changes to those different structural conditions that frame around them.